Welcome back. If you're in pursuit of making 7 figures, you got to have a strategy. You may have heard of Chris Collins. He's the business outlaw, trainer and coach. You could also find some serious tips inside his new book.
That new book is called Grand Strategy, Business is War. Joining us now, author Chris Collins. He's the CEO of his very own company, Chris Collins Incorporated. Great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure.
Yeah. So we were connecting in the green room over this new book that you have. This is really interesting stuff. This is actually the second of 14 books.
Yeah, so it's the second one in a 14-part series.
Your fingers are still on your that's tough to type that much. What's in the book? Tell us about it.
So my career has been turning businesses around.
Yeah.
And in that, I learned a lot of things. I mostly did it on commission. So if I didn't succeed, I didn't make any money. I took a piece of the upside in struggling businesses, and I wanted to sit down and write a book about turning a business around. But when I did, I was limited in that I couldn't really mention names in specific scenarios.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and you guys would understand this, life is crazier than fiction.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the stories of embezzlement and sex and murder really are true in business. Business is war, and it's interesting. So I decided, after I sat down, to make it a fictional story, and I created a character where this young 20-year-old Michael inherits 3 breweries from a father he never met, from a father that was an amazing lover of food and beer and wine, but he wasn't a great business person. Yeah. And when he left it to his son, it was in good shape. But when he actually passed away and he was murdered, and nobody knows why he was murdered, which is part of the story, it was $1.8 million in debt. And Michael joins finds a syndicate, which is a mastermind, and they help him turn it around. And so each book has a specific lesson. One's on hiring, one's on pricing strategies, and then this second one is on grand strategy, how you create a strategy for your business, because you have to start with the end in mind. So
even though it's a fictional book, you can take real world information from this and apply it to
the sex, drugs, and rock and roll are just a delivery system for the business lessons.
It just happens to be the way Chris likes to talk about things, but it's a lot more interesting than maybe just your average how-to book.
It's not a bunch of
finances,
spreadsheets,
because there's so many of
those. Of course,
and everyone. So the third one's almost done, but every time somebody reads it, they're like, "Where's the next one?" Because we end everyone with a cliffhanger, and this second one you'll cry in the beginning because there's a letter from his dad, and the design of it, the whole thing. It's an experience more than anything, and I find younger millennials less want to be taught, and they kind of want to be shown. And so that's the idea. It's a new way of learning. They don't want to have a big textbook and go to a long course. They just tell me what it is. And so if I deliver it in a story, it's easy to understand.
And of course, we have Business is War at the cover there, but grand strategy as well. Why is it important to have a grand strategy when you're going into business?
Because if you don't have like 3 or 4 steps planned out ahead, you're always going to pull up short. You're always going to play not to lose instead of play to win. And so you need to be thinking out, 2 or 3 steps. It makes the step in front of you a lot easier.
And there's so many principles, so much wisdom you're able to incorporate. I know that you mentioned it's one thing to have a really good idea in a business. It's another thing to execute that idea. Right?
Yeah, no, ideas are a dime a dozen. I get pitched ideas all the time, but what I'm looking for if I'm going to invest in somebody is I'm looking for somebody who has a track record of execution, getting things done and pushing through, because any idea that you have, you're going to come up against 3 or 4 obstacles that you will think it's not going to work. And it's the people that can push through that have a toolbox to get around it are the ones that I want to invest in. So that's an important part of it.
And before we go, a very non-fiction podcast that you have, and you're helping these business owners. They're calling in. I checked it on your website. It's unbelievable. A bunch of different owners, that reach out. Tell us about the podcast.
Business Outlaws has been hugely successful. So I do it with my best friend Big Mike, and we just one day were hanging out, and I was like, nobody tells kids the truth about business. They tell the idealized version of things. Let's do a show where we go back, and if we could talk to our 24-year-old self, what would you really tell yourself? Because you'd be very honest very quickly. And so that's been the premise, and we've had Mike Tyson on, we've had tons of people on, and it's really going well. It's growing very fast.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
So subscribe to Business Outlaws.
Do it.
That's right.
It's great having you.
That's right. People can also visit your website to get all these links.
ChrisCollinsinc.com.
There you go. Great to have you, friend. Very interesting. Thank you.
Pick up a copy. Chris Collins, Grand Strategy, Business is War. It's on the website you see on your screen. Number 2 of 14 And you can also catch Chris on Facebook and Twitter. Bestseller Publishing, a proud sponsor of the Morning Line. Stay with us. We'll be back.